No mercy for you, no worries for you. That Game of Thrones, go Cersei on you. I flipped the script, I roll the dice. Don't fall asleep, cause I'm working nights. Hey, you tryna shut me out, it's getting blatant. Hey, I come and see you now, no hesitation. Yeah, I'm really, really tired of being patient. Hey, if you won't give it to me, I'ma take it. Take it. If you won't give it to me, I'ma take it. Take it. If you won't give it to me, I'ma take it. But if they never told you that the world was...
Now, with all the excitement of 2020 camera releases, there have been some heavy hitters that pretty much feel like they're dropping almost on a daily basis at this point. And not to be outdone, Red has officially thrown their hat in the ring with the release of the Red Komodo. This is Red's first prosumer priced camera. Now, this camera is not being touted as a prosumer camera, but as a professional camera that just happens to be priced at a point where many prosumers are considering it as a viable solution for their video productions. So why is this camera so important? Well, first off, this camera is priced at only $6,000. Now, typically price doesn't make it in my videos, as normally it's not an important factor. However, compared to other Red cameras, what you received for the price tag is practically unmatched. For starters, this camera shoots in 6K Red R3D files. This is a big deal because Red RAW, in my opinion, is the best flavor of RAW you can shoot your videos in. This is because it works with most NLE editing softwares. It has full white balance altering support, unlike ProRes RAW. It has full ISO editing support, unlike Blackmagic RAW, which has limitations, and it gives you the option to change color profiles in post. It truly is a complete RAW workflow. Now, this is just the start of the pros of this camera. As I mentioned before, not only does this camera shoot in 6K RAW, but it shoots it also in ProRes at up to 30 frames per second. It offers CFast cards instead of proprietary cards. It does offer slow motion modes such as 4K 60 frames per second and 2.7K at 120 frames per second. And lastly, it has a built-in touchscreen, which is definitely helpful and uncommon in Red cameras. However, this is not necessarily just a pro because there are a few cons to consider with this monitor. So let's actually use this as a smooth transition into some of the blatant cons you should be aware of. Now, as great and as helpful as this onboard screen is with this camera, under certain circumstances, it will be unusable. First, in broad daylight. This screen is very difficult to see, and being directly on top of the camera doesn't help shade it from the sun in any way. On top of that, as soon as you put this camera on a gimbal or you just raise it up to eye level, the screen is completely unusable. I mean, you can't even see it. Now, this can easily be solved by attaching an external monitor, but I still think it's actually worth noting. Also, another major con is the fact that the Komodo is running a beta software, and as of the current beta software, the RAW files are only offering you 2 compression options. And when using high quality, it doesn't appear to actually have any compression to the RAW at all, which could be great, but the file sizes are massive. For example, a brand new 256 gigabyte CFast card only captures 15 minutes of raw recording. This is highly unsustainable for most shooters. And lastly, when it comes to shooting in any other like resolution outside of 6K, you're going to see a noticeable crop. Like, check out this test we did, and you can actually see how as we cropped in on the sensor, switching from 6K to 5K to 4K to 2.7K, how big of a crop we actually got from setting to setting. Now this is the Red Komodo in 2K in ProRes 24p. Can you see me? Am I in frame? So yeah, the crop is sort of noticeable to say the least. But let's shift gears and let's talk about the camera body itself, because for some people, this is gonna be the main reason why they pick up this camera. I mean, this camera is tiny, like super tiny. However, the ergonomics feel flawless. With an attached side handle, this camera feels very comfortable. And honestly, I feel like I could film with this thing all day just holding it with that side handle. This camera has a built-in CFast slot, built-in SDI port, built-in battery compartments for Canon batteries, and an RF mount, and all this will work with EF and PL adapters. Now, the RF mount offers some very interesting new features to the Red camera system, such as continuous autofocusing. Along with this top screen, you have the ability to just tap on an area and the camera will automatically focus to the point. Now, this isn't just spot autofocusing, this is continuous autofocusing, so long as your subject actually stays within the little box on the screen. Now, you can continue to just tap around on the screen if you want to be able to keep that subject in focus, or just make sure they stay within the box. Now, spot autofocusing is an option. However, you can decide to use that, or you can choose to just disable all these features altogether, go the old-fashioned way, and just manually focus. Shooting with this camera was an absolute blast, and I really enjoyed the entire process. However, there are two items that I would love to see brought to the final version of this camera. Now, as I said earlier, this is just beta software, but I think these two things could actually easily be added to the final version. And so the first of these two is to have more raw compression options. I would love to see the option of shooting at 12:1, 8:1, even possibly 4:1. Really, I just want the option to shoot raw without filling up a memory card so quickly, but having multiple options to choose depending on, what shooting situations I'm actually working in. Also, I would love to see some tracking added to the autofocus section. Now, since switching over to shooting cinema cameras, I don't typically use autofocus very often. However, when I do, tracking is definitely a helpful tool, as in most situations, the subject, at least that I'm shooting, isn't staying perfectly still. If it's a person, they're moving around, and I would love to be able to just track their face. Now, as great as this camera is, I think it is important to address the elephant in the room, and that is the fact that this camera is entering into a pretty crowded room. Now, with other budget cinema cameras such as the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera coming in around $2,000 and offering Blackmagic RAW, and the Z-Cam coming in at around $2,500 and offering Z-RAW and ProRes RAW over HDMI. Even the EOS R5 actually, you know what? Scratch that camera. That camera can't stop overheating. We'll push that one to the side. Just kidding. Honestly, I think the most important question here is this camera actually worth 2 to 3 times as much as the other cameras? Now, if you are a Red shooter, I think you're gonna love this camera. And even if you're just an aspiring Red shooter, I think this is actually the perfect entry point for you. I think Red actually knows this, and that seems to be the reason why they're actually positioning this camera the way they are. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, because I'm going to continue to test out this camera more and more, and I'll be posting more content from this camera, more test footage, so that way you guys can actually see what you can capture from this sensor. Be sure to leave any questions you have for me down below in the description, and if you're interested in learning more about filmmaking and improving your skills, check out the Creative Fam Academy. There you'll find new training courses and content monthly, along with production assets such as contract templates and LUTs, and really there's a lot of stuff on there. You should just check it out. Links in the description. Thanks so much for checking out this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.